Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Today marks 19 years since Saudi terrorists owing allegiance to Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda hijacked two planes and crashed them into the World Trade Center in New York, killing nearly 3,000 people. A third plane crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., while a fourth crashed into a field in Pennsylvania, all of them part of a coordinated terrorist attack on America. Falling debris, people jumping from the towers to their death, and the image of the Twin Towers going up in flames were displayed on televisions across the world. They have been embedded in collective memory ever since. This is the story of Simi Singh, a 53-year-old Indian American who has lived in New York for 26 years and works in finance in downtown Manhattan. Simi remembers watching everything from her apartment 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center.
It was on September 11th. My husband and I were in our apartment. Our apartment was 2 blocks away from the towers. And we heard this very, very loud noise, a very strange noise, that we had never heard a noise like that before. And so we were like, what happened? What was that? What could that be? And we were just thinking, oh my God, maybe it was like a construction accident or, something like that.
Simi, who immigrated to the US from Delhi at the age of 13, then got a call from her mother who told her that the first tower was hit. This was approximately at 8:46 a.m.
So we ran down and we are standing there looking at the towers, and there's dead bodies falling out of the towers. And I don't know if those people were already dead and they were just being thrown out by the impact of the plane hitting, or if they were just jumping out of the building. So we see these people flinging themselves out from the building, which is something that I will never forget and still haunts me.
We would later learn that many people were jumping to their death as there was no way to escape.
I worked in finance, as I mentioned to you. So I had some clients in that building because it was, the World Trade Center. A lot of finance firms were based there. So I called up my clients and I said, are you guys okay? Are you leaving the building? What are you doing? Et cetera, et cetera. I just checked on them. I talked to them. And they said, yeah, we're fine. They're telling us just to stay put. It's safer to be here than it is, on the streets or whatever. So we're just staying put. So I have to tell you that this was on a Tuesday. On Thursday, I guess, when I was watching TV, after all of this, and they're showing the faces of the missing people. Well, my clients show up on the faces of the missing people, and they were, they died, obviously. Anyway, so we're standing there, the first building is burning, and then the second plane hits. And then by then, everybody realizes that this is not an accident, we are being attacked. So we start sort of running for our lives.
This was approximately at 9:03 a.m.
And while we're running, the first tower falls. And so everything is covered in that dust and that debris. My husband was a foot away from me and I couldn't see him. And even in this chaos and people don't know what's going on, what this is, the human spirit triumphs, because there were these guys, they were ripping off their business shirts, their expensive business shirts, and shredding them to pieces and handing them to people saying, here, use this as a mask, use this as a mask. So it felt like the world was ending and human decency prevailed and people were helping each other. So we kind of went as far as we could go, and then the island ends. It's water after that, so you couldn't go any further. And by then we realized that, the second tower is also probably going to fall. So there was some, I guess, police or emergency people there, and they started telling us to kind of get in the fetal position in the grass, because you don't know when the tower is going to fall, what sort of debris is going to go flying around. So we just all got in the fetal position and just kind of waited for the next tower to fall. And it did, and then there was another big cloud and plume of dust and debris and all that stuff. And then in the middle of all of this, there's all these planes flying around, because I now we know that they were protecting our airspace, but at that time we were in it and had no idea what was going on. We were like, are the planes attacking us? Are the planes enemy planes? Or, it was mass confusion. You didn't know if those enemy planes were going to bomb you or what was going to happen. So anyway, after the second tower fell, then these EMT people, they were just because the river is right there, the Hudson River, they started stopping any boat, any barge, anything that was on the river. They started stopping them and just hauling people off the island, where we were.
Total evacuation.
Yeah, exactly. So they just started putting us in boats and taking us to the other side of the river, which was New Jersey.
Simi was one of many who were part of the mass maritime evacuation where ferries, fishing boats and tow boats joined mariners to help nearly 500,000 stranded civilians cross the Hudson River over to New Jersey in over 9 hours. But many also fled via the Brooklyn Bridge and mostly on foot as transportation was shut down. Like Simi and her husband, several were left homeless for weeks and unable to return to their neighborhoods which had been destroyed. In the last few years, the World Trade Center has been rebuilt. It is now a transportation hub. A museum and a memorial have been set up near what was once the disaster zone. But another fallout of the tragedy was the way public perception changed towards the Indian American community in the US and immigrants at large.
I'm a Sikh. So obviously, my husband wears a turban, my brother wears a turban. So yes, there was Sikh-Americans were the target, unfortunately. I think all minorities were, but because we had turbans, a lot of people who mistook us for followers of Osama bin Laden. So especially against Sikh-Americans, there were a lot of attacks. One Sikh-American was shot to death. But in general, yes, across immigrants, I remember that I did some volunteer work where I went to like the busy junctures of New York, like I went to Grand Central Station and places like that, and handed people pamphlets basically saying, hey, just to educate them.
19 years on, the 9/11 tragedy continues to be one of the most shocking terrorist attacks in modern history. Due to COVID-19, this year's remembrance will be different. The annual tradition of reading out names of those who perished at Ground Zero will not take place due to social distancing rules, but there will be a recorded version. Also, the annual Tribute to Light installation, which requires about 40 personnel to be set up, will take place as usual. This is Krishnankutty for ThePrint. Do log on to theprint.in and follow us on social media.